Hi YouTube, this is Joe with Calton Cutlery. You can visit us on the web at caltoncutlery.com. Excuse the dark and the noise from the forge, and I've got a couple of fans running. But today we're gonna quench some choppers. I've got three basic choppers that I'm gonna quench. Um, since I have three of them, what I'll do is I'll heat up the first one and quench it, and then move the camera over so you get a little bit different view. Heat the second one up, quench it, and then move the camera the third time so that you get a good view from three different angles. Don't mind the colors that you'll see. So far I haven't seen a single camera that would pick up the color that I see on and it have the same color as the color that's on the camera. So anyhow, we'll go ahead and get the first one heated up for the quench. I won't talk a whole lot during that one, and then the second and the third one, the camera will be closer to me, so you should be able to hear me a little bit better. Okay, so that was the first one. And this time what we'll do is we'll come right over about here. Now the setup that we have here is a little bit differently than what I normally use for choppers. Normally I use my sword forge on the bottom, and it's got a baffle. The burners, heat up the atmosphere inside the forge. The atmosphere heats up the baffle tube, and then the baffle tube is what heats up the chopper. And that gives me a really nice even heat. You can stick a cold blade in there and then watch it come up all nice and even, all up. Goes through critical, and then let it sit for a second longer, and then pull it out and quench it. The reason we're doing it differently today is because I have a couple of choppers that are too wide. The choppers are a bit too wide to fit into the baffle tube. So I ended up modifying my middle-sized forge to be able to give me a nice long even heat on those wider choppers. I should mention that these are 5160 choppers. They're out of 1/4 inch thick stock, so there's quite a bit of metal to heat up. They have been forged out rough ground with an allowance for any warpage or anything that might happen. We're quenching them in vegetable oil. I don't know if you saw it on the first one or not, but I do an edge quench, and so you've got this really hot knife, and only half to 2/3 of it is going to be submerged in the oil. So the other half is sitting on top of the oil and basically burning off the fumes as the oil gets hot. So vegetable oil, I really like it because I have a hard time believing that anything that's food grade that you can eat is going to hurt you when the fumes will hurt you when it burns. I can't say the same thing about petroleum-based quenching fluids. We're almost there. We got a couple of little cold spots. What I've got inside this tank is a regulating plate. It's just a piece of metal that's got a whole bunch of holes drilled in it, and then at each corner it has a hole that's drilled and tapped for a bolt. So you can raise and lower the level of the quench plate to be able to give you the depth of an edge quench that you want, so that you can control how much hard part versus soft part there is in the finished blade. That gives you control over how stiff the blade is, the degree of flex that the blade will take before taking a permanent set or breaking. Depends on how high you go. And then also inside this tank is another, it's a piece of angle iron with some slots cut in it. And what that does allows me to put the edge of that chopper inside those slots, and then it holds the blade vertically in the oil while it's cooling. We'll get you here up real close to the quench tank so you can see that blade as it cools. Now when I heat a blade up in the forge for the quench, there's a couple of different things that I'm looking for that'll tell me that I have the right temperature prior to quenching the blade. The first one is the color, which the color that you see will change according to your condition, whether you had enough sleep the night before, the ambient light that's in the shop. So basically what you do, I've been quenching here for about an hour or so, maybe 2. And so what you do is you set the light in your shop, grab your magnet, and then calibrate your eye to what the magnet tells you. And then you're looking for that same color each and every time that you quench. Also, what you're looking for is the shadows that are in the blade. As you take a piece of steel and heat it up, the steel will go from dark and it'll go up through the different colors, and then once it hits critical or just below critical, the steel will appear to darken up. It'll darken up a little bit and shadows will play across the surface of the steel. Then, as the steel takes the final little bit of heat that it needs, those shadows will play out and disappear. Let it heat for just a second longer and then pull it for the quench. So I'm looking for the color, I'm looking for those shadows as they come and go. And then I'm trying to get the same color across the portion of the blade that I want hardened all at the same time. The tangs, I don't normally like a hard tang, so with the forge doing it this way, I can control how hot the tang gets so that it won't harden even though it goes into the oil. This one's just about ready. Once I get the blade into the quench, what I do is I keep it moving forward and backwards until all the color goes out of the spine of the blade. And then once the smoke kind of dissipates a little bit, then I'll go ahead and drop the whole blade into the oil. Now we should have enough time on the camera. I can show you one that I did earlier today. We're going to let these blades cool down slowly in the oil. And then once I'm done quenching everything for today, then I'll go ahead and I'll go ahead and pull them out, clean them off, and put them in the oven for tempering. This tester, or this, what we're going to have a look at now, is probably your first indication that your heat treat, that you did what you wanted to do during the heat treat. Still a little bit on the warm side. Let me turn the light on. Now what we're looking at here is the scale patterns that are left on the blade. If you'll notice, if we can get, there we go. If you'll notice, the part that went into the oil, all that scale popped off. There's some shavings on the bench. All that scale popped off to the depth of the oil. And then the scale is still hanging on at the spine. And then you get a transition zone in between the two of them. That's your first indication that what you wanted to get done actually happened in the blade. If one part of the blade was colder than another part and didn't get hardened, you would see that scale hanging on in the part that was cold. Once it gets hot enough and quenches and hardens, that scale just pops right off. Your second indication of a successful heat treat is whether or not a file will cut the edge. The sound of the file, the way the file cuts or doesn't cut in this case. So that edge is good and hard. But the spine is giving me, well, it's cutting some of the scale there, but the spine is being cut by the file and is giving me a different noise. The tang is also. See, that tang is just soft. See how the file, or the shavings are coming off the file? But anyway, that is a video on quenching choppers. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.